Greetings, beloved Princeton United Methodist Church community. It's Pastor Jenny with a Holy Week update for you, and I'm going to read from Philippians chapter 2, verse 8. Jesus humbled himself and became obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. This is the word of life. Thanks be to God. So this video is coming to you between the big celebrations of Palm Sunday and Easter Sunday. And you know that lots of things happen to Jesus, with Jesus and the disciples between those two big days, these two big celebration days. And I invite you more deeply into this week, between the two Sundays this year. You know, one thing is that we have not gotten to celebrate this in person at all over the last 2 years. And so what a huge thing that we are able to come together in person. And even if you are not going to be coming to the church in person, I hope that you will find a way to connect well remotely and find a way to journey on this passion experience with Jesus and his disciples together. We can't celebrate Easter. We can't even make entire sense of Palm Sunday without the cross and without the things that lead up to it. So I invite you in again. And as we are moving into this week, we're going to continue to talk about forgiveness. This week is all about forgiveness. Easter is all about forgiveness. The cross is all about forgiveness. And we say that, and it's still awfully hard to figure out how that all actually works. So part of the way we figure out how that works is by continuing to put ourselves in the story, to continue to put ourselves at the cross. We allow ourselves to be at the meal with Jesus. We move through these events, inviting Jesus to continue to talk to us, to work in us, and to move with us through these events toward Easter. You know, we've talked a lot about forgiveness over the past six weeks, and I want to share another bit of teaching around this from one of my teachers. I don't know her personally, but Sister Helen Prejean is somebody whose name you might recognize. She wrote the book Dead Man Walking a number of years ago, and she is a Roman Catholic religious sister in Louisiana. And in her book, in the movie that is based on that book, also tells really well, I think, the story that is in her book. But she was written to by a death row inmate at an Angola State Prison there in Louisiana many years ago now, asking her to be his spiritual director. Now, if you're on death row, of course, you've done some pretty awful things, assuming that you're there legitimately. And it seems that this person was there legitimately, had done some really heinous, terrible things. And of course, this made her extremely nervous to go and do this work. But she was called and she went. And at first, as she was working with this man who, again, had done some terrible things, she felt that her work was to help him to take ownership of what he had done. He was in some bit of denial, denying that he had done the things that he had done, and her job was to free him, to help God free him, to be an agent of God's work and God's love by helping the truth to set him free. So at first, he resisted, even though he had asked for her, he resisted this because it is so painful for us. Even when we do small things, it's hard for us to admit the things we've done wrong. How many kind of false apologies, semi-apologies have we uttered to people that we care about, or how many have been uttered to us? How many do we hear in the public sphere all the time? But eventually, Sister Helen was able to help him tell the truth about what he had done. And it broke something open in him. In fact, it paved the way for him to begin to believe once more that even he, is God's beloved, one of God's beloved. Sister Helen has worked against the death penalty for many years now, and she worked to stay his execution as well. It didn't work. He did die. She was there with him while that happened. But I believe, and she believes, I believe because she believes, that even though he died free. He died forgiven. He died knowing himself to be beloved. One of the things that happened as a result of this is that the family members of the victim caught wind of what she was doing and got really angry, understandably so. And she had to work through what this meant and how to receive that anger, how to understand that anger, how to work through it. Eventually, she decided that she needed to be in ministry of reconciliation with the families of the victims of the people she was serving on death row as well. Some didn't want that, of course, but others did, and others were able to receive and join her in this ministry of reconciliation, which is no small thing, because when we have been wounded so deeply, when somebody has taken something that we have loved, someone that we have loved so deeply, it is a miracle when we are able to forgive. Sister Helen has taught me so much about forgiveness because she has worked at it in so many directions, in so many areas. She has helped to bring reconciliation between people, again, these people who have done terrible things and the people that they have done terrible things to, brought them together. Again, it doesn't always work. It's not always perfect. But she has been about a ministry of reconciliation. I share this story with you because sometimes when we read Jesus stories or even disciple stories, it can feel so far away, and it can feel a little like it feels removed. It feels like it's not something that we can really participate in the same way, because after all, it's Jesus. We can't do that. We can't be that way. Sister Helen is someone who, when I read about her, when I read her work, when I look at what she's doing, I think, oh, I want to be like her. I'm not there yet, but I know that she's doing the work of forgiveness and reconciliation that Jesus calls us to, that Jesus leads us to, that Jesus is the way of, that this is the kind of work that Jesus did all the time, even though the circumstances look different and the particulars were different. This is the way of Jesus. You might have other teachers, and I would love to hear about your other teachers around forgiveness. Who has taught you what it looks like to forgive, to be forgiven? Who has helped you to understand the stories of what the cross means, how it is part of your life, how you create a cruciform shaped life? This is hard. This is hard stuff. It's hard stuff to understand. It's hard stuff to dive into. It's hard work within us to think about these things. I imagine that some of you watching are very challenged even by the story I just told about Sister Helen. Yet I invite you to dive in and into that discomfort and to keep working on this journey of forgiveness. We're going to shift to other topics after Easter, yet this is always a topic that underlies who we are and what we do and what we are about as Christians. And so my hope is that this time has helped us to explore it a little bit more. We certainly haven't covered everything, and most certainly we are all still on a forgiveness journey. Hopefully you've been able to make a few steps down that process, whatever it is that you have needed to do, whatever you have been called to this Lent. Again, I invite you to the events of Holy Week, not just for the sake of attendance, but because this is our story. This is what being a Christian, this is the defining story, as Adam Hamilton says, for us. And so I invite you to come and be in the Labyrinth in our worship space sometime this week. It's going to be open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. We have a Tuesday noon service that will reflect once more on that last beatitude, that Matthew 5, verses 11 and 12. Taylor Necochea is going to be leading us in that. We have services on Thursday and Friday that'll continue to help us ritually immerse ourselves in the story of Jesus, his passion for us, the love that will go so far. There's no end to the love, the extent the love that God's love will go to bring us back to God, to make us whole, to forgive us, and to help us know that we truly are God's beloved. So you're invited to all of that. We have a service on Saturday as well, very short, a more contemplative service in the quiet and the dark and the silence of Holy Saturday. And then we'll rejoice again on Easter. But before that, find your way into Holy Week. Blessings to you all.